Thank you for tuning in today and joining us in Arlington, Virginia for the swearing-in ceremony of re-elected County Board Chair Libby Garvey. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're from Arlington or joining us from the DMV area, which is the District, Maryland area of Virginia, any parts other than Arlington, or any place near or far, we are excited that you've decided to tune in with us and do things a little bit differently today for the swearing in. We know that things are happening around the world with the pandemic, and so we want to do our part in Arlington by making sure that we keep everyone safe. So we'll be in this virtual space today in order to make sure that we do our part to keep Arlington and its constituents safe. I am Lori Wilson, and I'm a native Arlingtonian and a current resident. I'm the youngest of three, born to the late Honorable Frank K. Wilson and the late Bessie E. Wilson. We lost Dad earlier this year, back on March the 10th, when he peacefully transitioned in his sleep. And I'll venture to say, it's probably the quietest thing my dad's done in Arlington since he and Mom moved here in 1961, and he embarked upon a life of public service. As one can imagine, life in Arlington was quite different then. We lived in a staunchly segregated Halls Hill community that was segregated from abutting white communities by a cinder block wall, of which parts still remain today. I was the only one of my mom and dad's children that could be born at Arlington Hospital. The color of my parents' skin closed the door to that opportunity to my two older brothers. So they were born at GW Hospital in Washington, D.C. Coming from the Deep South, my parents understood all too well what barriers can do to disenfranchise a people. So they worked hard to tear down those walls and build bridges. My father, rooted in faith, and a deacon at Mount Olive Baptist Church since Mom and Dad came here, coached the youngsters in Little League football in the neighborhood because he wanted to instill lessons that they could carry with them for the rest of their lives that would reach far beyond the field of football. He was instrumental in the John Langston Civic Association, along with others, to make sure that progressive change was happening for people that looked like Dad and myself. As well, Dad also sat on the Arlington Hospital Board to create more change and more opportunity. And while he also worked on numerous other boards and associations, he'll likely be remembered for his work in Arlington on the Arlington County School Board, where he worked tirelessly with others to work to close the minority achievement gap throughout his nearly 25-year tenure. In fact, it was around 1991 or so when at a school board public hearing, when Dad first encountered Libby Garvey, when she, as an outspoken parent, made her voice known. Dad was so impressed with her purpose and passion that he greeted her with a firm pat on her back and shared with her, "You ought to run for the school board." And eventually, that is precisely what she did, serving in that capacity for 15 years. My dad and Libby forged a working relationship that developed into a friendship that far outlasted their mutual time on the school board fighting issues of inequity. She remained a close and dear friend of Dad's until his death. I asked Libby the other day, tell me something about my dad. She thought, and it didn't take long at all. She said, "Your dad taught me to see who was not in the room." At this time, I'd like to introduce you to those whom we can see who are joining us in this virtual space today. Our special guests include the grandchildren of Libby, a accomplished poet, author, and translator, and former Poet Laureate of Arlington, Catherine Young. We are also pleased to have several of Libby's colleagues join us today. From the Arlington County Board, there is Matt DeFerranci. Please forgive me for mispronouncing your name, Matt. Also, Christian Dorsey and Takis. Please pronounce, forgive me
Caratonis.
Caratonis. Thank you, Libby, to the rescue. And then also, please help me to welcome those from the Arlington County School Board. Vice Chair Barbara, and can I get a last name for Barbara, please? Cannon, thank you. And Monique O'Grady. O'Grady.
We'll get it right.
Nancy Van Dorian, Reed Goldstein, and Tanya Taliento.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, definitely so. And then also we're pleased to have joining us from the Electoral Board, Vice Chair Matt Weinstein. We want to give a special thanks to you for your service. And then also, we want to acknowledge that our current clerk of the court is here, Paul Ferguson. And of course, our honored guest, Libby Garvey. And without further ado, at this time, we'll have the grandchildren of Libby who will render the Pledge of Allegiance.
You're muted, baby.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now you're muted, Lori. This is very 2020.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. From the mouths of children and straight to our hearts. That was a great job. And now we're going to hear from Catherine Young, who will render for us a powerfully relevant poem that she's written. Catherine?
Thank you so much. I've been asked to say a couple of words about this poem. In 2016, I was newly appointed as Arlington's Poet Laureate, and I got a call asking if I could read a poem at Libby's swearing-in ceremony back in December 2016. And so I thought, sure, that would be easy, and I started looking through databases of poetry. I started asking friends. I found almost nothing contemporary that celebrated public service in general, and I found nothing that talked about women in public service. This is maybe not surprising because women have only held public office in the United States for roughly the last half century. But what was I to do? So I ended up writing a poem, and the poem is not just about Libby's service, but about the collective history of women in Arlington. And it's called Women's Work, on the swearing in of Libby Garvey to a second term on the Arlington County Board, December 13th, 2016. The epigraph to this poem is from Jane Austen, whose birthday it is today, and it's from Persuasion. Men have every advantage of us in telling their own story. Education has been theirs in so much higher a degree. The pen has been in their hands. So, women's work. There is method in our work. When we fished the teeming river, wove grass mats to wall long houses, sowed seed corn, all this before the riverine plantation's glebes, the boundary stones, canals and harbors, the federal city, Confederate ramparts, the freedmen's village, five-sided forts. There is power in our work. When we, the daughters of Africa, were yoked to plow and sow and reap Potomac fields in blazing heat, when Elizabeth Ball birthed 5 girls on a farm where she kept bees, sheep, pigs, when Anne Carlin built a dairy, started a restaurant near a spring. There is beauty in our work. When we embroidered watered silk, held ice cream socials in our front parlors, crimped our hair in permanent waves, hired out to fill impermanent slots while young men fought across the seas, when Roberta sang at Macedonia Baptist Church, killing us softly. There is valor in our work. When we scrubbed the floors of boarding houses, toiled in Roslin's brothels, saloons, when we nursed and taught and dreamed of more, when Grace Hopper built compilers, when Gloria Thompson climbed the stairs to integrate Stratford Junior High, when we sat in. There is honor in our work. Honor for the women whose steps we trace when we drive the buses, wrangle budgets, enforce the laws, ensure the jails staffed, chair the council, collect taxes, honor in the offerings of our own bodies, spirits, minds, honor in the work of our hands. Congratulations, Libby Garvey.
It's beautiful, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was simply amazing. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Catherine, for so eloquently and powerfully speaking to the work of women in our county and in the world. Thank you so much. Now we'll shift for the business at hand for the swearing in of a public servant who's made inclusion and the work of making sure that women were at the forefront, and all of us, not just women, but bringing everyone with her into the room and staying there, her daily mission. Libby Garvey, I'll turn it over to you now. Electoral Board Vice Chair, Matthew Weinstein.
Well, thank you, Lori. Again, my name is Matthew Weinstein. I am the Vice Chair of the Arlington Electoral Board. And the Electoral Board is a 3-member body that oversees elections in Arlington, Virginia. We delegate a lot of that to our great Director of Elections, Gretchen Reinemeyer. I'm joined by my 2 colleagues, Scott McGarry and Charlene Bickford, and congratulating you, Libby Garvey, on your election win on November 3rd. And I'm here today to really fulfill one of our duties as members of the Electoral Board, which is to present a certificate of election to you for your victory from November 3rd. And this certificate is to certify that at a meeting of the Electoral Board of the County of Arlington held on November 9th, 2020, on an examination of the official records deposited in the office of the clerk of the Circuit Court, it was ascertained and determined that the election held on November 3rd, 2020, Libby T. Garvey was duly elected member of the Arlington County Board for a term commencing on January 1, 2021 and ending on December 31st, 2024. So again, congratulations. I'll coordinate with you on times I can actually give you your certificate in person or by mail. And again, congratulations and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate your colleagues being here. I know Charlene is your chair currently, and she's been doing this a lot for me. It's great to have you here this time, and thanks for the great work of the Electoral Board. This was quite a year to be on an Electoral Board.
Thank you. I guess with that, we'll kick it over to Paul Ferguson to do the oath of office.
Thank you, Matt. Paul Ferguson, Clerk of the Circuit Court. It is my honor to, once again, I've had the honor of administering the oath office to Libby for a number of different offices. I shouldn't say number. There was 15 years on the school board and now 9 years on the county board. Catherine's poem caused me to reflect as Libby and I were corresponding before this. We noted that we had both started our careers in government service at roughly the same time, but Libby joked that I got to start a little bit earlier. And in addition to Libby's impressive career in government, she first raised both Shannon and Ruth. And I know she's also been an active grandparent, but getting that job not completely done, but well underway, caused her to start a few years after me. But that's really noted in Catherine's poem that men do have some advantages, not just in the political world, but in the working world still. Although I know all of us that are on this Teams meeting today are committed to making things completely equal. So with that, I will go ahead and administer the oath. Libby, would you please raise your right hand?
All right, and I've got my family Bible here. This went to Africa with us with the Peace Corps. I'll put it right here. I'll put my left hand on the Bible and my right hand in the air. Go ahead.
Perfect. Do you, Libby T. Garvey, solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the County Board of Arlington, Virginia, for a term commencing January 1st, 2021, and ending December 31st, 2024, according to the best of your abilities?
Yes, I so affirm.
Congratulations once again, and I think my job is to hand it over to you for some remarks.
I think so. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, everybody. Lori, what a great introduction. Seeing that picture of your parents again, this is just wonderful. Your dad was a very special man, and actually launched me on my last campaign to take this, get to the point where I could take this oath of office again. So he's still with me in many ways. Catherine, what a wonderful poem. That's just, it was great the first time. It seems almost more special the second. Thank you so very much. All my grandchildren were here with me 4 years ago. I think we've got a picture of that we might be able to put up. And 4 years ago, they all came and helped lead us all in the pledge. So there we are. They're all about 4 to 12 inches taller than they were just 4 years ago. But it was great to have you all with me virtually. Thank you so much. I have to make a big shout out to our wonderful Arlington County staff. So Kendra Jacobs, who's managing the slides and managing this whole kind of program here. Kathy O'Malley, my aide, who's always a great aide, and she never fears to tell me, Libby, I think you should. And I really appreciate her support. David Woods, our producer, who's working behind the scenes and actually making this room happen, I think, virtually. And then I have to give a huge shout out to Peter Hill, who worked late last night to get that Pledge of Allegiance together because it came from all kinds of different locations. And even into just a few hours ago. Peter, thank you. He was good-humored and willing to do it, and really, really appreciate your being willing to go above and beyond to make this happen. Thank you. I think my daughters and my mother and my siblings are joining from various far-flung locations. This is my 8th swearing in, and by far, I have more of my family here than I ever have had before. Doing things virtually has some real advantages. And I know, I want to do a shout out to everybody. I know a number of our senior staff were here, including our manager, Mark Schwartz, who also make this all possible. So I really appreciate everybody being here. Paul and Matt, you've made it official. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate having my county board and school board colleagues here today. So thank you. So I have a few remarks, not a lot, but this is a bit of a bully pulpit, and I wanted to take advantage of it and just say a few things that are kind of close to me, to my heart. Because being sworn in, it always feels sacred, but this year really especially so. 2020 started out to be a significant year. There were a couple of big anniversaries. It was 2020 is the 100th anniversary of Arlington being called Arlington. It's the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. And just a year ago, we were all set to spend some time this year recognizing and contemplating those events. But 2020 had other plans. First, our dear colleague and my vice chair, Eric Gutschall, became ill in February, and he died in April. The pandemic, of course, hit us all in March. And then in May, the horrific murder of George Floyd showed us clearly that systemic racism is real and it has got to stop. And now, at year's end, we are in a surreal conclusion to our national presidential election, a process we all took for granted until this year. So it seems appropriate to just talk a little bit today about democracy, local government, and Fabergé eggs. Back in 2016, a European was asked what he thought of our American presidential campaigns, and he responded, "You Americans, you treat your democracy like a football. You kick it around. But it's not a football. It's a Fabergé egg, and you could break it." And there we go. Beautiful Fabergé eggs. All right. This year, we just about did break it. One of the good things, I think, to come out of 2020 is the increased understanding that our democracy is indeed fragile and valuable. And at the same time, the pandemic has shown how important is good government at all levels, especially local government. It is local city councils, county boards, along with their staff, who have been holding this nation together. Indeed, I have never been prouder to be a local elected official and never prouder of Arlington County than I have been this year. Residents and nonprofits swung into action and partnered with county government as we changed what we do and how we do it to make sure that everyone has a roof over their heads, food on the table, and access to health care. Has it been perfect? No. But given the challenges we faced in the federal chaos, it's been pretty darn good. And it's a lot clearer now that democracy and government are indeed more like a Fabergé egg than a football. And I'm sure we can all come up with ways that we should treat our democracy like the valuable and fragile thing it is. But I think the basic way is simple. We need to treat each other better. That Fabergé egg is we the people, all of us. Which brings me to a frequent theme of mine, civility. Civility is important for civilized life. That's why civility comes from the same word as civilization. Books on civility have been around for a long time. One from 1595 has as its first rule, be respectful, not subservient or agreeing all the time, but respectful. I think being respectful in our democracy today means treating each other like we are on the same team. We may disagree on something important, but we are still on the same team and we are respectful of one another. Incivility takes a toll on those in public service and on our community as a whole, which is why I keep bringing it up. We are facing some major issues in the next years. These include setting budget priorities while our economy struggles to recover. And we've got to stop systemic racism. We really can't afford to be fighting among ourselves if we are going to actually tackle these major issues. And while I've got this bully pulpit, I want to touch on the other issue that I've been talking about for years, how we support local government. When I began my elected service back in the 90s, it was somewhat reasonable to assume that local elected positions were part-time work. But times change, and we need to change with them. So let's reflect for a moment on what local boards and city councils do. In today's electronic age, elected members are expected to be available pretty much to their constituents 24/7, to answer emails, attend meetings and ceremonial events, analyze major land use and other issues, coordinate with regional bodies, and ultimately be responsible for large budgets in the range of hundreds and billions of dollars. People turn to them for leadership in a crisis. And elected officials are expected to do this work part-time on a salary that, in Arlington at least, qualifies a family for affordable housing. This is because elected officials are assumed to have another job. But these elected jobs today are full-time or more. If you step back and look at it in 2020, it's totally unreasonable to treat these positions as part-time. But just about every local government in Virginia operates this way. Why is this a problem and why do I keep talking about it? Because my ultimate goal is good government. A strong democracy and government require a broad and representative pool of candidates to run for office. It's getting harder and harder for good people to run for local office. When I encourage people to run, some tell me they can't take the nastiness. There's that civility issue again. More say that they'd love to do the job, but they just can't afford it. And over time, this is not good for our democracy or for our local government. So during the next 4 years, I plan to encourage civil discourse as much as I can and do what I can to strengthen local government, both in Arlington and in the region, so our own Fabergé egg doesn't break. I also plan to help us grab the opportunity that I think this pandemic presents to really tackle inequity. When the pandemic goes, I am hopeful that we will decide we still want to make sure that everyone has a roof over their heads, food on the table, and access to health care. That will lead to some interesting policy discussions, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you for giving me another 4 years to help make Arlington a better place for everyone. So thank you all. If I were in person, I'd give you all a big virtual, I'd give you all a real hug, and I'll give you a virtual hug now. Thank you so much. And with that, I think we are concluded. And I invite those who are on the Teams meeting to stay, and we can chat a little bit and visit. That would be nice.